Assalamu alaikum guys. I hope that all of you will be fine by the grace of Almighty Allah. My name is Amal Aziz Khan and I'm here to present a topic in front of you. That topic is based upon solving the concept of subnetting. So that when a subnetting problem comes in front of you, you will be able to solve that problem. So let us start our activity. This is the problem that we will be solving. So before going on to the problem, first of all, we need to know about a certain concept. And after having those concepts, we can easily solve the problem of subnetting. Before subnetting, we need to know what an IP address is. IP address is basically an inter-protocol address. For example, when 1,000 users around the world are sharing network and accessing data among each other, there is a certain address through which they are able to communicate. That address is known as an IP address. It is basically a 32-bit Unicode, means that the total size that an IP address is having is of 32 bits. And there are two parts of an IP address. One is the network part and another one is the host part. Network part is basically represented by number of ones and host part is represented by number of zero while representing them in binary digits. Okay. So there's an ambiguity. What is that ambiguity? If you are having an IP address like 192.168.45.10, so we don't know that what is the network part of this IP address and what is the host part of an IP address. So there are two methods for determining the IP address, or we can say there are two ways for determining the IP address. One is uh, one is determining the range of an IP address, through which we can decide that what is the network and host part of that IP address. And the second method is by determining the number of host part as well as the network part of an IP address. So how can we determine that? There are classes used, and we as a whole have 5 classes for determining the IP address, whether it is a network part or a host part. We will be basically handling these 3 parts more frequently rather than the last 2 parts. So let us go through it. For finding the host as well as the network part in an IP address, classes are used, and there are 5 classes. Both 0 and 127 are not considered, as 127 is used as a loop address for checking the validity of network. Okay, after assigning some values to an IP address, we cannot use a value that is 0 or 127. 0 or 127 basically are the values that are used for determining whether the validity of a network is done or not. Okay, so now we have first of all class A that is having a range from 0 to 127. So when I create an IP address 192 dot uh, let's see 128.104.23.10. So when I see the range of that IP address, that is 125, I can say that this is a class, this IP address has a class A. This is the first method of determining the range of a IP address that from which class it is determining. So I have determined the class is A. Okay. And another thing that I need to mention in this class is that in class A, we are having a certain property. What is that property? That we are having one network part and 3 host part. So this, I will also underline it. This is the network part of and this IP address, and the remaining one is the host part of an IP address. I hope guys that you will have a brief knowledge about this concept. So we need to check two conditions for an IP address. First of all, we need to know that what class an IP address have. For that, we need to know the ranges of all the classes. Class A is having a range from 0 to 127. Class B is having a range from 128 to 191. Class C is having a range from 192 to 223, whereas Class D is having a range from 224 to 239, and Class E has a range from 240 to 255. And after having the knowledge about classes, then we also need to mention that in which class, which are the network parts and which are the host parts. So in class A, we have one network part and 3 host part. In class B, we have 2 network part and 2 host part. And in class C, we have 3 network part and 1 host part. Whereas, as I have earlier mentioned, that the class D and E are not that frequently used, whereas class D is used for multicast experiment and class E is used for experimental purpose. So we will maximize these 3 classes while solving a subnet problem. Now, before understanding this brief concept, now you will able to solve the problem of a subnet. What is the concept of subnet? Why subnet is required? So, for solving the problem of having more user than 4.8 billion, we divide an IP address into several IP address that resolves the problem. So, around the world, the number of users using an IP address are increasing day by day, which means there's a burden on an IP address, and we are having a if since we are having a high traffic or the network traffic is too high. So in order to solve that problem, we divide our IP address into small number of IP address so more number of users can access to that IP address. In this case, the network load is also overcome. So this is a basic concept of an IP of subnet. Why we use subnet? Subnet is basically used in common word to divide an IP address into multiple IP address so that large number of users can access to an IP address. Okay, and another important concept that we need to understand in IP address is ICDR. What is an ICDR? ICDR is basically the simple notation found at the end of an IP address, which is used to determine the number of bits. For example, okay, the example is there. I will share an example with you, and you will further know about the concept of ICDR. First of all, we need to know the procedure of solving a subnet problem. First of all, we need to understand while solving a subnet problem what we need to do. First of all, checking number of bits. How do we check the number of bits and what is the number of bits of an IP address? Where n is the number of bit and h is the number of host. So after solving this problem, you will be able to understand the concept of subnet. So this is a problem. First of all, we need to solve the problem. What we are given data. So let us start. Okay. First of all, we need to know that what is this? What is the class of this IP address? The class of this IP address is class B. A's class B is having a range from 128. Sorry, class C. A's class C is having a range from 192 to 223. So this is basically class C. First of all, we understood that the IP address of this class is of class C. We check the first octet. So when the first octet of an IP address is belonging to the range of a particular class, we see that the IP address is of that class. Another thing that we need to find is that now which are the network part as well as the host part of this IP address. So we are having three network part and one host part. So these are the two things and we need to mention while solving an IP address. First of all, we need to know about the class of an IP address, then the range of an IP address as well as the network part as well as the host part. Now we will solve the problem. So this is basically the ICDR that I have mentioned slash and notation after an IP address. So it is basically saying that first of all, let me convert this IP address into network and host part so we'll be able to understand it. 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 Okay, so the first three decimal bits that is showing is that this IP address is having three network parts, which is represented by one and one host part. What I have done, one slide, I have borrowed a one from the host part. Why did I do that? Because we all know that in class C we are having three network part. That means that we are having 24 bits. Okay, so one bit is borrowed by the concept of an ICDR so that we can divide it into what should I say, into number of subnets. So this information has given to me. Now what I need to further check, now I will go to the problem and you will be able to understand it easily. So first of all, what I need to do is I need to know about the number of bits, that is 1. Okay, and the second one is the number of host that I earlier mentioned is 7. Then what I need to check is what I need to check is what are the subnets. There's a formula for calculating the subnet, that is 2 power, and you need to mention this formula. We are having 2 and the power we are having 1. So we can say that we can create 2 subnet of this IP address. This IP address will be having 2 further IP addresses. Okay, so one thing is solved. Then the other thing is that we need to find out the range of that IP address or the blockchain of IP address. So how will we find that? We'll be find that through the concept of host, that is 2 raised power n minus 2 raised power h, whereas 2 raised power n is 1 and 2 raised power h is what? 7. So what is the 2 raised power 7? While having 2 raised power 7, we get the value of 128, and 2 raised power 1 we get the value of 2. So after minusing that, we will get 126, which will be the last host of this IP address. Now I also need to mention the size of the IP address. How will I do that? There's a process for solving that. We will calculate a formula that is based on blockchain. And in blockchain, what will we do? In blockchain, we will minus the whole host from that particular number of bits. That is 2 hosts. Okay, so we will be having 256 minus the host that we have used. That is 256 minus 128. That will give us 128. So we are having the range of an IP address starting from 0 to 128. Okay, and we will be having the host from 1 to 129. So now let us see and implement this. Problem is almost solved. I will make a table. 1 2 3 4. Okay, what this table is, it will give me the subnet, host, last host, and broadcast ID. We are not going to deal with broadcasted. The only thing we need to know, if we are having the knowledge of the subnet as well as the last host, then we will be easily filling these two spaces. How we will do that? First of all, we need to know about the subnet. We will be having two subnet, that is from 0. First of all, I will need to mention the IP address as 192.168.1.0, and the second one will be from 192.168.1.128. Okay, now we'll be determining the last host, 192.168.126, sorry, dot 1.126, and this one will be 192.168.1.126 plus 128. Let me calculate what value we are having. Later, 126 plus 128, 254. Okay. Now, since I am having the last rows as well as the subnet, now I will be able to determine the host as well as the broadcast ID easily. 1.1 and 192.168.1.129. And what I need to mention here, 192.168.1.127 and 192.168.1.255. So this is how you determine an subnet when IP address is given to you. Another problem is also solved here, in which we are having 26 bits means two network part being converted and be borrowed from a host part. So we will having four subnets, as well as the block size will be changed to 192, and the last rows will be 62. So this is how we will calculate. So I hope guys that you all will have been familiar with this topic, and if you are having still problem or concern regarding the concept of an IP address, you can have your question at comment section. That's all from me. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.